Welcome back, adventurers and outdoors people. Spring is in the air. The Pacific Northwest is the best place to be in spring and summer. And you know what that means? More outdoor activities. So today, we're going to be unboxing, assembling, and installing the Yakima Holdup Evo 2 tray-style bike rack. So stay tuned.
You left me all alone, yeah, outside in the cold. Wanted to come over, wanted you to know how I'm getting over, like a centerfold. Your heart is fucking cold. I'm better off. I'm better off alone. I'm better off alone. I'm better off alone.
Now before we get started, a couple things to touch on. Why would somebody purchase a tray-style bike rack over one of these? Well, there's an easy answer to that. Depending on the type of bike that you have, the geometry of the frame doesn't really accommodate one of those style of bike racks. They do make an adapter pull to go across here so that you can hang this style of bike or a similar style of bike with this frame geometry on a bike rack like that. However, that's very inconvenient, and it also causes the bike to hang a bit lower than it really should. During the video, you might catch me kind of looking around out here at our property. We were quite shocked what we got on our trail cams and what we were sharing our land with. Check this out. Whew, gives you the creepy jeebies, right? Well, so got to keep a watch out. Make sure we don't have any visitors. They're beautiful and furry. They look quite cuddly. If you are interested in seeing what else we've caught on our trail cams, check out the other video for our Guard Pro trail cam. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Assembly instructions. Probably aren't going to need those. What looks to be the tools, Yakima is usually pretty good about supplying tools, but what's also in here is keys because this has locking mechanisms to it, which is great. Main tray for the bike rack has a foot actuated pedal here, which makes it easy to kind of lift it up and down. The actual hitch receiver part, it actually has the ability to lock to the truck itself. It's a different locking mechanism because the pinhole doesn't actually go all the way through, and then the pin itself. This appears to be one of the trays. It's actually more assembled than I thought it would be. And obviously tray 2. All in all, it looks like it's going to be a pretty simple install. The reason why there was no parts package is because the bolts are actually already pre-installed onto the trays. Now Yakima did provide some wrenches for you. You're going to find it easier if you use a 13mm ratcheting wrench and a socket, as well as a 19mm ratcheting wrench and socket. Now the best way to do this is to actually assemble it on the vehicle itself, which is also the way that Yakima recommends. While they do look at, these two trays are not exactly the same. There is a front and a rear. So this one here's the front, and then this one here's the rear. I really don't think that it matters. Probably interchange them, but the way that Yakima has the illustrations and the directions, this is the rear and that's the front. The only thing you got to be careful of is that this part here isn't pointed towards your bumper. That's the thing. All right, so our first step is just gonna be install the frame assembly into the tongue. We're gonna need this pin here. This is the locking mechanism, and this is a wedge that prevents it from rocking around. So you might have to loosen that wedge just a little bit to actually slide it in. When we slide this in, this pin is going to pop in from the other side here. And no, the pin doesn't go all the way through. I'd say that's probably the chief complaint that people have about this. You do have to know that Yakima sells two different versions of these. This is the 2-inch version. They sell a 1 1/4 inch version, which I think is mostly for cars. And then once the pin's in, they want you to tighten this down, so that this doesn't rattle around. Unfortunately, that's kind of hard for me because I have an insert in here, and this just simply won't clamp the insert down. So mine's actually going to shake around a little bit and cause that pin to pop out, and then out it comes.
It was at this moment that he knew.
That really sucks. That really, really sucks. And then go ahead and lock it using the key, and now this will spin freely. But here we have a very large design flaw. So larger trucks like mine, like a 3/4 ton, 1 ton, they have a slip ring in here so that you can put different size tongue mounts in there. And unfortunately, that pin not going all the way through can easily rattle out. That's a problem. So if you have a larger truck like mine, this probably is not going to be the best rack for you. So you see this little slide here. You got to kind of line this up so that that slides into those slides. Push down on this and that'll align the hole. And this is where we'll use our 19 mil. Now Yakima recommends torquing this down to 25 foot-pounds. Now it's important to note these aren't through and through bolts. There's 2 on each side, so there's 4 per tray, and these will slide right in here. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and center them. Well, all in all, I'd say that's a pretty simple assembly process. It was pretty easy to do. So let's take a look at some of the features that this has to offer before we get into some of the cons that we discovered as we were doing the assembly here. So one of the nicer things is has a foot actuated pedal to bring it down. If you have a truck or even a hatchback, if you don't have a bike on there, you still have access to get to the back of the truck. If you do have a bike on there, it does offer this feature where you can actually tip it down to open a hatchback, a trunk, even possibly a tailgate. Mounting a bike is fairly simple. Bring this tray out, bring this hook lever up, undo this strap, run this strap through your back strap through your wheel, bring this mechanism up, and cinch it down. One of the nice things about this rack is it can actually accommodate a lot of different styles of bikes. Mountain bikes, downhillers with fatter tires, even those electric bikes with the super fat tires, as well as your regular everyday road bikes. I believe that this can tolerate a wheelbase up to 48 inches, but I think you could get away with a 50-inch wheelbase. They do have the option to insert another rack here to extend this out to 4 bikes. One of the other great things about this is they do have this locking mechanism, allows you to lock the bike itself to the rack. There's a total of 3 locking mechanisms on this. You have 1 cable per bike, so there's 2 of those, and then the locking mechanism to actually lock it to your truck. Getting your bike off is just as simple. And you're ready to get dirty. Well, now let's talk about some of the cons. Probably one of the first ones that people will notice is that it is quite expensive. Generally, I'm very happy with Yakima products. Kind of a large design flaw on Yakima's part. Those of us with these larger trucks are going to run into this kind of all in all. But the rack itself, despite it being lockable to the truck, when you have a larger 3/4 ton or a 1 ton truck, your receiver that this mounts into is actually typically larger because trucks are designed to tow things. And the bigger the truck, the heavier things you can tow, the bigger receiver you need. So most trucks that are 3/4 or even 1 ton are going to have a 2.5-inch receiver. I have what we call a receiver slip in there to bring it down to 2 inches, but because of Yakima's design, it doesn't allow a pin to go through and through. And that's kind of a big problem because their clamping mechanism doesn't work on larger receivers, and I'll show you why. So imagine you're driving down the road, this thing's rattling, shaking about, and the pin comes out. That means the rack can slide completely out. This was not in the win column for me. However, I do want to say that if you have a car with a 1 1/4 inch receiver, or even a 1/2-ton truck or Jeep or something with a standard 2-inch receiver, this bike rack would work. The only reason it's not working for me is based in its design, and it doesn't have a through pin because I have to have a receiver reducer slip in order to accommodate this. So I'm going to do some research and I'll update this video when I figure out an answer. Well, adventurers, a little bit of a disappointing day for us today, but I tell you what, I'm going to go check and see if I can fit this on my wife's Jeep and see how that works out. We do have a lot of other videos coming up. If you're interested in seeing what more we've caught on our trail cams, check out our trail cam video. It'll be coming out soon. If you're interested in learning more about this particular mountain bike and one similar to it, as well as some of the gear that I use for riding, to include great places to ride here in the Pacific Northwest, be sure to check out that video. It will be coming out soon as well. We've also been working very hard on a video for Honda Rubicon four-wheelers, and that video will be coming out soon. So if you're interested in checking those out, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. We'll see you next time.